Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of What's Your Next, the show where we help you explore what's possible when you're ready for your next, but don't want to make a reckless move getting there. I'm Stacy Riska, your lifestyle and franchise matchmaker, here to help you do what you love and love what you do. If you've ever thought about investing in a franchise, there's one part of the process that makes everyone nervous: the legal side.
Welcome to What's Your Next. This is the go-to podcast for aspiring business owners who want to get to the next level, escape the rat race, and give their middle finger to the corporate 9-to-5. If you want financial freedom, work-life balance, and the business of your dreams, you're in the right place. Dave and Stacy Riska, husband-wife franchising duo, openly share their successes, failures, and lessons learned in franchising, business ownership, and working with your spouse.
Let's face it, there's franchise agreements, there's FDDs. That means pages and pages of fine print that can feel overwhelming and intimidating. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain without all the legal jargon and no fear tactics. My featured guest today is Kelly Spann, owner of Fortman Spann Law Firm, a nationally recognized franchise attorney who works with franchise buyers every single day. Kelly helps people understand what actually matters in a franchise agreement, what's just noise, and how to move forward with confidence instead of paralysis. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thanks, Stacy.
I'm so glad you're here because this is a topic we haven't covered in the show. And most people, when maybe they're a young kid deciding what they want to be when they grow up, they say, I want to be an attorney. And so they go to law school, they become a lawyer, and they probably go down one of those typical paths we all think of: criminal law, family law, employment law. But you chose franchise law. That's an interesting path. So share a little bit about your background and how you chose to get into franchise law.
So I would tell you that it chose me. I did not necessarily choose it, nor did I necessarily choose to be an attorney. It kind of found me. It's a long story, but I happened to start working at a law firm, just helping an attorney out who was in a same office space as a job I was already working. I quickly fell in love with the practice of law, so I switched gears and started working for him. We were general practice for years, so I've done everything from traffic tickets to class actions and everything in between. So I affectionately say I know enough to be really dangerous in a lot of areas of law. But one day, a friend of ours, a judge friend of ours, had a sister who bought a franchise that was a bad franchise, and nobody else would take the case. And we were like, well, we'll give it a go. And we did, and we were successful. And we took the next case with a different franchise, which was Curves International, which most people remember. And we took that one and won that one, and it has just exploded from there. So when I took over the business officially, I niched us down to solely representing franchisees and got rid of all of the general practice stuff. And I only do the franchisee work now. And we don't do anything on the franchisor side at Fortman Spann. It is all franchisee related. And that's just kind of how both the practice of law and franchises just kind of chose us. It was not an intentional path move. It was just, we said yes to an opportunity and it worked out.
Wonderful. And so you've been doing this for a few years now. You obviously, you know the space, both sides, from the franchisor and the franchisee side.
Correct.
Most candidates that I talk to, you mentioned the word lawyer or legal agreements and franchise law. You're going to have to sign the franchise agreement, and fear, like you can see the smoke coming out of their head. So in plain English, what does a franchise attorney do?
Trying to think in plain English.
Like, how do you
Let me
help a potential buyer?
let me explain what I do. Okay.
Okay.
So we don't all operate the same. And not all attorneys are scary, by the way. I know they seem scary, but they're not all scary. Um, what I tell clients my job is before they sign a franchise agreement is just to make sure that they understand the legal implications that they're entering into. You know, what are the legal, like, what are they legally responsible for? And what is the franchisor legally obligated to do for them? So making sure they understand the legal document. I also make sure they understand the dynamic that comes with a franchise relationship. It is not a typical business investment. There is a different dynamic that comes with franchise investments that you have to understand before you enter into them, because it's very important to understand the relationship itself and how it works. Because in order to be successful, you have to understand how to work the system, which is what you're essentially buying, right? Is the system. And if you don't understand that, it's going to be really hard for you to get in there and succeed. So that's a lot of what I do. I've done this for 23 years at this point, which is crazy. Um, I also know how to look for red flags that most people do not. I know the players in the industries. I know all of these red flags to look for. So when I do an FDD review, I'm not just doing an agreement review. I'm also doing the FDD review and going, okay, like there's been some where I get 10 pages in and I write no in red all over it. Right. And because I know the players involved and I know there's under no circumstance am I going to recommend that you enter into this because I know what is going on. So things like that is kind of what you are paying an attorney for. It's not necessarily to scare you, even though I know legal things are scary. It's to make sure you're informed and to also give you the information to go back to people like yourself, Stacy, or the franchisor directly and say, hey, I want to negotiate these things. And a lot of people tell you it's not negotiable. That's a lie. It
Mm-hmm.
absolutely is. There are terms that certain franchisors won't negotiate, but you won't know that unless you ask, right?
Right.
And if you don't know what to ask for, that's step number one. You have to understand what you are asking for. And, there's a lot of things that go into this. Like, are you already in the industry? Do we need to cover, hey, if you leave, what's that non-compete look like? It's a very dynamic relationship, and it's really crucial that you understand how that all looks. And because what I tell clients is your job is to plan for success. My job is to plan for everything to go terribly wrong.
I like
And
that.
if you're prepared for that, though, success is far easier and you can spot when failure is coming way quicker, which helps you mitigate the damages and get out sooner. So that's kind of what I do. Ideally, before people sign. Unfortunately, they usually sign and then call me afterwards, which is a much different situation. But that's what you should be paying a franchise attorney to do is really everything I just talked about.
Yeah, to me, you're like the franchise protection police.
Yeah, kind
Where,
of.
right? You're helping people ensure that they're making a smart decision, that they know what they're getting into, the potential, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like you are informing people of things that they should know about. Because the reality is, most candidates coming into this process, they're in the initial stages, they're dreaming, right?
Mhm.
Oh, I can own this business. This sounds so exciting. And they just go off on that tangent instead of thinking, oh, I have to read this 600-page document with all the fine print. It must be okay. A lawyer wrote it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens all the time, all the time. And it's the scariest document to sign, in my opinion, without really doing your due diligence and hiring an attorney to help you understand what it actually says.
Yeah, right. It's your protection and that way you're going in with eyes open. And it's not like if you're going to invest, usually the 6 figures and up that it takes to
Right.
get into a franchise, Why wouldn't you invest a few $1,000s to talk to someone like Kelly, who's going to literally read this document for you and make things aware that then ultimately you can determine whether it makes sense for you to move forward or not?
Absolutely. And there's times, Stacey, where I've had somebody call and they're like, hey, I want to invest in this particular franchise. And I can say, I can tell you for free, the answer is no.
You already know about it.
No, absolutely not. I'm not going to, no. The answer is no. Or the one with, I got 10 pages in, they prepaid and I called her and I said, hey, I'm only 10 pages in and I can already tell you there's zero way I'm going to recommend that you sign this. And
Wow.
I gave her the option. Do you want me to, I'm only a few hundred in, I can just refund the rest of it, or do you want me to finish the review? And she wanted me to finish, and I did, and she ultimately did not sign. But it's, that's what you're paying for, though, is our experience and knowing these players and knowing the red flags, which are not going to hit you in the face. Even other attorneys, if they don't do what I do, and they don't do franchise law, and they're just an attorney who's well skilled in contract law, that's fine. It's different. The red flags in franchise law are vastly different than your standard contract review. You have to understand the dynamic and what it all means as a whole. Because paragraph 12B1 might seem innocent by itself, but when you combine it with 23AC or A3 or whatever the heck it is, now all of a sudden it means something vastly different. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to read it as a whole, all 300 pages. You have to read and understand as a whole to truly analyze these things. And that's what you're paying for, and why you have to go to someone like me, not that it specializes in this kind of law. Just hiring a regular contract attorney, yeah, they're great at regular contracts, but this is not a regular contract. It is vastly different. And I know it seems like it isn't because it looks and feels like a contract, but it's different. And it's really important that you get somebody who truly understands how to assess and look for those red flags.
You are right on, Kelly, because I have had candidates come to me and they'll be like, "Oh, my next door neighbor's an attorney. I'll just have them review it." And sometimes they will. And you're right, they don't understand it. They don't know what they're looking for. They come back to me, and I'm not even an attorney. I'm like, this person does not understand franchise law. You need to talk
Yeah.
to a specialist. So I want to ask you, because you've alluded to this a few times, there are red flags. There's absolute red flags. You can see them as soon as you open the document. The candidate probably can't. But there a few that you want to share with our audience? Like, what should somebody considering investing in a franchise be aware of when they're looking at the franchise agreement as a whole?
I wish I could verbalize what red flags to look for, other than like the blatantly obvious ones. Like, oh, you open up and you get to item 3 litigation, and it's like 4 cases right there in your face saying, hey, these franchisees are accusing us of XYZ, right? That's a pretty blatant red flag right in your face.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of franchisors will try to explain them away or whatever, but it's a red flag nonetheless. And sometimes there is valid explanations for it, sometimes there isn't. But it's a red flag staring you in the face. The other red flags are, um, golly, the age of the company,
Mm-hmm.
the experience of the people behind the company,
Mm-hmm.
doing some due diligence into those people, into the companies. What you have to realize at the end of the day is, and I get a lot of flack for this because from other people in the franchise profession, but franchisors and the people who sell them, not you, Stacey, others,
Uh-huh.
because I know you don't do this. They're touted as, oh, we're highly regulated. They're not regulated at all,
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that. They have one rule that they're supposed to follow, and it's called the FTC amended franchise rule, and it
Yep.
has 23 disclosure items that they're supposed to do. The problem is, if they don't do it, there's nothing you can do about it. And that is it is so frustrating. And there's a reason why a lot of attorneys don't do what I do, because it's not easy, right? There's no private cause of action for violating the FTC and franchise rule. I can't sue for it, even though I can prove it with 100% certainty. I know for a fact there's one franchise system, it's I Heart Mac and Cheese. I had an active lawsuit against them.
Oh.
Their follow-up FDDs that they published and sold franchises under disclosed the active lawsuit as settled for pennies on the dollar.
Oh.
They 100% knew it was active.
Yeah, that
And they
seems
still
blatant to me.
disclosed that it was not. So, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Oh.
Only the regulators, some state regulators will do stuff about it. Like Indiana did step in that case. California also stepped in that case, and shut down the franchise in both of those states. But there's very few states that have actual franchise regulations that are doing anything about it. And then the United States government's not doing anything at all to regulate these franchisees. They have one rule they're supposed to follow, and the only person who can bring a cause of action is the Attorney General. So that's why it's so important to like really dig in and do the due diligence and understand, for the lack of a better word, who you're getting in bed with. Like, that's what you're doing. So that's kind of what I do. And just because I've been around for 23 years, I know a lot of these key players. I know a lot of the systems. I know a lot of the risks that come with certain investments. Like I had one couple that was going to do a Visa investment, and they were sold completely on a plumbing franchise. And I did the review, and there were quite a few red flags. But the biggest was they didn't have a matchmaker like you, Stacy. They were doing it themselves. Okay. Zero. They did not even know how to change the faucet. They had zero.
Right. What's a screwdriver?
Correct. Zero plumbing experience whatsoever. And they're supposed to come to the United States and start a plumbing franchise. And I was like, guys, like there's a ton of other franchise systems out there that is better aligned with what your skill set actually is, which is clearly not plumbing. So, I mean, just things like that, I talk to people and I get an idea of who they are and what they're trying to do. And then also review that with the franchise agreement and make sure they understand all of it. But the red flags are really hard to identify without just having the experience. So.
Well, you have, over 20 years, so many brands that you're familiar with, and you've been through so many documents. We talk a lot about the FDD, which for those who don't know what that is, the franchise disclosure document. And it's a document that's legally required to be given to you, but it's not a legal document. So Kelly, from your experience, if somebody who's listening to this is thinking, yeah, Kelly's bringing up some good points, I should talk to an attorney, a franchise attorney, I should talk to Kelly. But at what stage, like when they get the FDD, after they've done some due diligence, when they get the agreement itself, like at what point should they start that process?
They should start the process once they get the FDD, okay? They should review it themselves, ideally, okay? Go through it themselves, then set up an appointment with an attorney to pay them to review it. I know they will pressure you. Like, first of all, when you get the FDD, you legally cannot sign anything, a franchise agreement, or pay any money for 2 weeks. So you have at least 2 weeks before you can, from the time you receive that FDD till you can sign or pay for anything. Okay. So that 2 weeks you should really spend digging down deep into this agreement. Here's the other thing. You can take longer than 2 weeks. Don't make them think that, if you don't sign this now, somebody else is gonna buy it, blah, blah. Those are high pressure sales tactics. This is a major investment and a long-term commitment. Take your time. Make sure you understand the document. Sometimes, our schedules are busy as attorneys, and we can't necessarily get it done in that 2 week time frame that you have or that you think you have. So give us an extra week.
Mm-hmm.
Let us do it so that we can make sure that you understand. And the other thing I do is I also point out things that I want you to look at, right? Like I want you to do some more digging here. Like insurance stuff, I put down, get quotes. You should be getting these things, like, and I identify all these due diligence things that I want you to do before you actually go forward and sign.
Mm-hmm.
And I use a whole color coded system and everything. And then I tell people after, now reread everything with my notes. And then we can talk about like, what do you need to address? Like if there's any particular issues that we need to address, do we need to make the territory bigger? All those kinds of things. But the time frame is from the time you get that FDD, you should be talking to an attorney and making sure that they're reviewing it before you sign anything. And people get really confused, by the way. When you sign for the FDD, you are not signing for the franchise agreement. It's
Right.
two separate things. So
Right.
you can sign for the receipt of the FDD. That's totally fine. That's fine. But you don't sign anything else until you get an attorney to review it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, most franchise agreements are usually 10-year terms.
Yes.
So isn't it worth it to invest in someone like Kelly to review it for you? If you're signing your life, potentially signing for 10 years, don't you want to know who you're getting into bed with?
Right, 100%. And here's the other problem is a lot of people, if they don't have not used a specialist like you or have not talked to an attorney like me, they don't realize that they're still on the hook for that entire 10 years, even if they close early. So even if they're losing their butt 2 years in and they have to close, that franchisor can 100% sue you for the remaining 8 years. Not to mention if you have any long-term leases or anything like that that were part of this agreement that you had to do.
Right.
But a lot of people that I talk to have zero clue when I tell them you can't just shut down. We have to address it with the franchisor because you could be on the hook for another 8 years, and the look on their face every single time is like, what do you mean? And this is part of understanding the document. It's like I said, it's not to scare you. It's just to make sure that you're informed before you do anything so that you really understand what you're getting into.
Right. So I'm curious of your take on this because I've heard some franchisors will say, "Oh, our agreement, it's standard because, everybody has to sign the same one because we're a franchise system, so everybody has to be the same." But I heard you mention earlier, like, well, they'll tell you it's not negotiable, but it is. So what's the difference that I'm hearing out there?
So it is actually both. It's both things. They're not technically wrong when they tell you their system and they really should keep it uniform.
Mhm.
Mainly because if you think about it, if they have, let's just keep it easy with numbers. If they have 100 franchisees and 100 different terms, it is really hard to make sure they're complying with all the different terms, right?
Mhm.
So that's what they're kind of getting at is like, yes, they really don't want to change up agreements too much anyway, because making sure they're complying with it themselves gets difficult. So they're not wrong when they say that the system is ideally everybody on the same page,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of things that are negotiable. And I do it all the time. And if they want to, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a sales process. If they want the sale, depending on what it is, they'll sell.
Mhm.
And the other thing to keep in mind is a newer franchise system, you can negotiate far more.
I've
Where a more established franchise system, you're limited, pretty limited on what you can negotiate because now they're managing thousands of franchisees. So, imagine that 100 different contract scenario times 1,000. Like that's a lot to manage. And the more terms you change, the harder it is for them to do that and still comply with the contract. So it's both sides of the coins. And I'm going to give you the classic attorney answer and tell you it depends because
yeah.
it truly does on the franchise, the health of the franchise, how big they are, how big they want to be. All of those things are huge variables on what you can actually negotiate.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's got to be, you're entering into a relationship. It's in a way like a marriage, and you want it to be a win-win. Both sides do. So
Correct.
from your perspective, Kelly, what does make a healthy franchise relationship on both sides?
Honestly, much like a marriage, good communication and
Mm-hmm.
understanding what the other party, where they're coming from, what objectives they have, what they're trying to accomplish, why, like if you can understand the other side, it makes it far easier for you to come up with solutions that work for both.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a lot of what I do. So if franchisees sign up, like sign a franchise agreement, and they come to me and they're having issues,
Mm-hmm.
the very first thing I do is try to work with the franchisor to resolve the issue, which 90% of the time is miscommunication
Mm-hmm.
and not understanding. Like the franchisees are like, I don't understand why they won't do this for me. And then I have to explain from the franchisor side why they are not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they understand that, they can then go, okay, I understand it. Now what? And we can pivot and we can go with a different solution that still accomplishes the same result. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a different way of doing it. And that's a lot of what it is. An easy example, which this is a pet peeve of mine and it shouldn't really be said anyway, but it's said all the time. And some franchise systems will say, oh, we're semi-absentee.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, what does that even mean?
Right.
Right? Like to me, part-time, does it mean part-time? Because part-time to me is 30 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
but part-time to somebody else might be 12.
Right.
That is a vastly different understanding of the same exact term. So that's a lot. What happens is that sales pitch they get sold on. The franchisee has a certain image in their mind of what kind of support they're going to get, what kind of services they're going to get, what it means to be semi-absentee, how many hours they're going to have to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And they go in with that image and they get in and it's not the reality.
Hmm.
And right there is where all the problems start
Mm-hmm.
because they went in with a false image and from that point forward to succeed is a huge struggle because it that's just, I mean, I literally see it constantly. So that's why it's so important, one, for franchisors not to do those sales pitches like that because you're setting yourself up just for trouble.
Yeah.
And then two, for franchisees to understand the true relationship and what they're legally obligated to do, which, by the way, in those documents that you're signing that you're not relying on anything they told you. You're only relying on the legal document. So it's just honest to God, it comes down to good communication and a healthy understanding of the dynamic and what needs to happen to make it successful from both sides. The franchisor also needs to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And if a good franchisor does, and they will work with me to really work out the kinks and so that both parties can move forward and the relationship can continue. And sometimes that's a sale, we could get the franchisee out. It's just not a good match.
Mm-hmm.
There's all different kinds of solutions that we've come up with, but the franchisors that work with me, I work with my clients, they work with ours, and we can usually find a middle ground that works for both parties.
Right. To me, you're kind of like a therapist.
Yeah. In more ways than one, I will tell you, I wish Stacey, I've had grown men sitting across the screen from me, just like you are, bawling their eyes out over these things.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
have seen, because gaslighting, I'm not going to scare everybody. There are tons of great franchise systems and investments out there.
Of
There
course.
are also, just like everything else in the world, really bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
And several of the bad ones are great at gaslighting.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for these people that by the time they contact me, they are literally financially destitute. They are on the brink of bankruptcy. Their marriage is in complete shambles. I've seen endless bankruptcies, endless divorces, and suicide.
Oh my God, That's
because
horrible.
of these investments. So they can go terribly wrong. But if you do the due diligence beforehand, a lot of those the predatory franchises are pretty easy for us to spot as if we're trained in it, right? So it's just making sure that you really do that due diligence so you don't end up in that kind of situation.
And the funny thing is, at least the candidates I'm working with, they're doing their due diligence all along. They're working with me to find a match. They're talking to the franchise, getting their learning and understanding of the business model. They get the FDD. They start doing some due diligence. They talk to other franchisees. And then when it comes down to what's most important, that legal agreement they're going to be signing their life away, it's just like, oh, they talk themselves out of it.
Yeah.
I'm really, it's shocking to me sometimes. Um,
It's I will say that's at least in those instances, they are doing, working with you, doing the steps. It's amazing to me how many people just literally sign them. It's unreal to me. And I,
Nobody tells them that they should. I mean, even I bought a franchise, my husband and I, many,
Mhm.
many years ago. As people who follow us know, we have a Hawaiian themed coffee smoothie franchise. And I worked with someone who does what I do today. And it's never part of the process that you should talk to an attorney. You should have somebody review this agreement.
Honestly, my personal opinion on it is you are the unusual one in your industry.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of franchise sales agents um, consider me and other attorneys like me as deal breakers. And they do not want to lose the sale, so they will not encourage
Uh-huh.
them to go to a lawyer to have the document reviewed. So that's when you get told things like, oh, they're standard and oh, don't worry about it. And it's a lot of the franchise agreements say in plain English, you should have an attorney review it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't read them.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other thing that's not regulated is you guys.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
no anybody can start selling franchise systems. There's no like license or anything you have to get to do it.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it. So, like real estate agents and brokers and all that, they have to go through all kinds of licensing to get it. That does not exist in franchise world.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand and really it's just like matching up with an attorney and matching up with a friend. It's important that you choose a good advisor like yourself that helps you match those things.
Yeah.
It, there's a ton of agents out there who've never worked a franchise a day in their life. How are you going to advise what it's like to be a franchisee if you don't understand what it means to be a franchisee?
Right.
It's crazy to me, but that's why a lot of other agents they won't encourage a lawyer because they consider me a deal breaker. And my
Yeah.
position, like I've told you before, is I'm not a deal breaker if you do your job correctly.
Yeah.
I should not be telling them something new that they have never heard before a day in their life. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you did your job, my job is just to make sure that the document is doesn't have any crazy red flags that you weren't aware of, that the document is carrying out what the parties agreed to. Like a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, they agreed to do this for me. And I go, okay, where's the addendum that covers it?
Right.
And they're like, well, we don't have one. They just told us they were going to do it. I go, that's not good enough. You have to have it in writing. So just things like that. Like I'm not a deal breaker at all. If once again, if you do your job correctly, but that is what we're viewed upon as. And then a lot of people in general, I spend a lot of time, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm not your typical attorney.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time undoing the image that other attorneys have given us over the years. And we are approachable. There's a lot of us that are really approachable. And, like I said, sometimes clients call me. I'm like, hey, you don't need me. I can already tell you the answer is no for free. Move on.
Oh,
Like
wow.
it's, there are people out there, I'm not the only one. There are plenty of other attorneys that are approachable. And, you know, yes, I'm expensive, but I'm really not that expensive compared to the investment that you're making and the long-term commitment that you're making and the potential hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages I can save you from if it is truly one of those red flag situations.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why I know people in the audience are like, you know what? I need to schedule a call with Kelly. So you've shared so much great insights and valuable takeaways today, Kelly. How can people get in touch with you and learn more and or schedule a consult to have them review their documents?
So you can just go to our website, which is www.fortmanlaw.com, which is FORTMANLAW.com. You can call us. Our phone number is 314-522-2312. All the links to all of our social media is on our website. I do videos on this stuff constantly. I try to get this information out anywhere and everywhere that people will listen to me. So I really thank you, Stacy, for sharing the information and making sure clients are truly informed of the legalities that they're going to get into with a franchise. And it's just fantastic to me. So anybody can reach out at any point to me, and I'm happy to talk to them.
Well, thank you so much, because you are such an important piece to this whole big decision that people are making. And I think, we've talked through it today that, look, if you're investing the time, money, really your life into a business that you're going to commit to for at least 10 years, isn't it worth it to have an attorney review the document before you sign? So reach out to Kelly. You'll be thanking us later, and just make sure you're prepared, that you understand what you're signing. And Kelly has years and decades of experience and expertise in this area. So I encourage you to reach out to her. Kelly, any parting words before we say goodbye?
Just thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody. And I just thank you very much, Stacy. I think what you do is
thank you for coming
wonderful.
on, sharing your brilliance and expertise. We might have to bring you back to dive even deeper. So.
I'm happy to. I could talk, it's crazy as sound. I could talk franchise literally all day. I could get on many soapboxes. Anyone you want me to get on, I'm happy to get on.
You don't speak lawyer, right?
Right. Yes. I have perfected the art of translating legalese for sure. I do not.
Where have you been all of my life? Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Reach out to Kelly. She's really a trusted expert. And thank you for joining us today on What's Your Next. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.